Hi there. I always remind you all that I'm not a videographer or an actress when I make these, but I wanted to provide just a little more information about mathematics instruction as our time was short in class. Some of this will be a review of what we went over, and some of it may be new information for you. Just a reminder that we talked about the fact that there is a big emphasis right now in special education in terms of looking at the importance of mathematics instruction and also trying to determine what are the best interventions to use within an RTI or multi-tiered system of support context related to math. Because remember that much of the research that went into the development of RTI was actually based on early reading instruction. And we know that children also need to be proficient in the area of mathematics, and that a number of children with learning disabilities and other disabilities have difficulties in the area of math. We talked about the fact that algebra is considered a gateway to higher mathematics, and that there are a number of skills that students need, foundational skills, in order to be successful in algebra. We went through these in class, but I want you to remember that those were fluency with interactions with whole numbers, being proficient with fractions, and as we discussed, there's a lot of research right now being done on children's ability to understand and manipulate fractional information and whole part relationships, and that is seen as critical to the development of skills that will lead to success in algebra. And then lastly, that there are geometric and math and measurement concepts that children also need to master. And remember that we can't wait to start developing these skills until children are in high school. We need to start developing those skills early in their mathematical instruction and continue to build on them sequentially until they reach those higher levels of mathematical courses. Major topics of school algebra here. We talked about this. This came out of the National Mathematics Advisory Panel that met in 2008, or the results were published in 2008. But just look at all the skills that a student needs, or at all the things they're expected to learn about in the context of algebra and the kind of background knowledge they'll need to be successful there. We discussed the National Assessment of Educational Progress and the fact that this is a measure that's administered throughout the country, so we can actually compare different groups and subgroups across states. But I do want you to notice that children with disabilities are not doing well in relationship to their peers on this measure. And if you look, the amount of decrease in their performance is greater than the decrease between 4th and 8th grade for students who don't have disabilities. Now, with that being said, notice that half of all students scored below proficient. So that's something that we ought to be thinking about. And remember that anytime you see whole groups of students not doing well, that should make us think about not what's going on necessarily with those individual students, but what's going on in terms of the instruction we're providing that so many students would not be meeting those benchmarks. This is STAAR algebra results as of the spring of 2018. Remember that children who meet and master are counted in the students who are considered to be approaching. And so if you really want to look at who is meeting the benchmark, that's the column that just says meets. That includes also the students that scored above benchmark are considered to have mastered material. So what that tells us is that when you look at Hispanic Latino students, only 52% are meeting or doing better than the benchmark. 19% are not meeting, but then you have an additional 29% that are approaching benchmark, but those students still haven't met it. I hope that's clear. If you're not understanding that, please be sure and talk to me. And again, if you look, the highest percentage of students who are not meeting is found in the category of students with disabilities. And English learners are also a group of students who are having significant difficulty in this algebra measure. And a reminder that the reason that you see LEP on this slide is because in Texas, we still keep records using the term limited English proficient, even though that's not a term we use or that is not recommended that we use in the literature. Okay. I want you to think about, as you look at some of these questions, this is a sample question, about the kind of information, the knowledge and skill a student would have to have in order to be able to answer a question like that. And so here, students are given a table and they're asked what n represents in that table. And then they're given a choice of numbers to, several values that they can choose from. This is a question off the 4th grade National Assessment of Educational Progress. I want you to be thinking about the fact that there's a tremendous amount of vocabulary students would have to know. They'd have to know what's a table. They'd have to know what the word represents means. They'd have to be able to understand what an inverse relationship is and how you can turn an addition problem into a subtraction problem. And then they'd have to be able to substitute values correctly in that table to ascertain the right answer. So I'm really wanting you to think about, again, what do kids have to know to be able to do something like this proficiently when they hit the 4th grade? A similar question, what minus 8 equals 21? The question is, what number should be put in the box to make the number sentence above true? This is an 8th grade NAEP question. And I want you to really think about, what are all the things a child, again, would have to be able to understand and be able to perform in order to answer this correctly. Again, they have to be able to read that question. They have to know what a number sentence is. We talked about inverse relationships. They have to know that. They have to know that you can put a number in a box to make a sentence true, and what a number sentence being true means, and that means that it is accurate. So again, a tremendous amount of information is required, right? We talked about the fact that the achievement gap in mathematics grows over time, and unfortunately many of the students that we will be working with who are receiving special ed supports will actually top out in terms of mathematical progress at about 3rd grade. And so you notice that there's just this exponential difference between children who are high performing in math and those who are low performing. And many of the students we work with clearly need acceleration in order to be able to move further up.